I know that you have so many interviews that you participate in that it's hard to keep track of them all, but I'm going to do what I've done other times when I have spoken with you, Dr. Wayne Dyer, and remind you of one of the first times we ever had a conversation. Is that all right?
Sure.
I've told you this in the past, so stop me if you're tired of hearing me remind you of how formative it was for me. But I had just spoken with you, or had just met, I think, in the hallway actually, at a radio station in Chicago, WGN, and it was the day before the Oklahoma City bombs.
Oklahoma, yes. Mm-hmm.
And you were on with Roy Leonard, a
right.
good friend of mine, and so we spoke, and you were on, but I knew you were still in town, and so that next day, when we were all still reeling from the disaster of the Alfred P. Murrah building and just how awful it felt to see those children destroyed, and I remember catching you on your cell phone heading to the airport, it seemed to me, and you were going out of town, but you were so kind to give 10 or 15 minutes just to try to offer some perspective and to try to help a whole city that was just struggling with knowing that something this evil had happened and we had witnessed it, and you were great for that, and I've always been grateful.
I recall that moment very well, and every time I see that picture of the explosions and what was left of that building, when I think about that happening in one explosion, I always think back to that time that we talked on the radio.
Good. Well, the memory is shared. Now, where am I catching you tonight? In Hawaii?
I'm in Maui. I just got in from London, actually, England. I flew from London to Maui, which I don't know if you've ever done that, but it's 11 time zones. So that when you're going to sleep, you're waking up, and vice versa. Very interesting challenge.
Is it faster to fly over Japan or faster to fly?
You know what? I put my finger on Maui, and then I had a string, and I drew it all the way to London, one direction, and I went the other direction, and it didn't make any difference. So this time though, we went to San Francisco, and then San Francisco to London. But it was it's very intriguing to see the power of your mind in something like that, because it's a complete and total reversal. I got there on a Friday morning, and I had to lecture for 7 hours on Saturday. So just to do a reversal, and once you make up your mind that you're going to do that, jet lag just doesn't seem to be a problem. It's only when it was all over with that I collapsed and didn't know where I was. But all the time that I was intensely involved in speaking to that audience, it was a phenomenal experience of the power of the mind.
Now,
I had also pulled a real bad muscle in my back, and
oh no.
I didn't even know if I was going to be able to walk while I went on stage, and that was completely gone for the entire 7 hours. Didn't even notice it. As soon as I got back to the hotel room, I went to get up, and I remembered what I had again. So somehow there's something to tap into there, I think.
I don't even know how you could pull a muscle sitting in first class.
Yeah. No, I did it in a yoga class the day before.
Oh, did you really?
But you're right about the first class. You're absolutely right about that.
It's funny you say 7 hours of lecturing. Do they just not get it, and you just had to keep going over the material?
Yeah, they're very slow over there. You just say the same thing over and over again
Well, and because it's really interesting, I'll maybe pick at that again a little bit later on. But I mean, we've got a couple hours here, and I'm really looking forward to it, and some more with some callers coming up. So I think that we may be going over some of this material a couple of times, because you go in intriguing areas, and there's sometimes I think we meet some resistance that says, oh no, that can't possibly be that. And so it does take us a while sometimes to mull things over. So, I mean, like, for example, this whole thing we just started talking about, the idea of a past life. I still don't know that I'm on board with a past life experience.
Oh, I don't either. Okay. I don't either. I don't know that I'm on board. It just it makes sense to me when I start studying all of the ideas that the greatest thinkers who've ever come down the pike. I'm writing a book now about the Tao Te Ching, which was written 2,500 years ago, and these great minds that have always speak about something called infinity, and the minute that you talk about something being eternal or infinite or without form, you've got to look at what that concept means, because we try to comprehend the idea of something happening before we were born, or something being infinite like a soul, but we do it with a brain that begins begins and ends. So the only equipment that we have for processing something like that is equipment that isn't equipped to deal with past lives and infinity and always and forevers and things like that.
Well, let's go with it for the moment and just say,
sure.
If we had a past life, if that was something that we could count on, can you tell us how you think? I mean, just theoretically, how this whole past life to present life dynamic works? Do we have choices in our past life experiences to where we are now? Are we living a life which is the consequence of mistakes we made in our past life?
Well, I can only, as I said, I can only give you hunches based upon what seems right to me, because I don't think there's anybody on this entire planet that can speak to that with absolute authority and authenticity. My hunch is that that we are all infinite beings. As I've said many times in my talks, we're not here as a human being having a spiritual experience. We are all spiritual beings having a human experience, and as a spiritual being, we are without form. And that formless part of us is a part of us that is eternal. And I have had experiences, and I wrote a little bit about it in my latest book, An Inspiration, about what it seems to me to make sense about when I arrived here on this planet. I have always had an internal kind of a knowing about what my life was to be. I believe that I can go back to in hypnosis and hypnotic trances that I've been going back into. I've had just real, absolute, genuine experiences of deciding who my father was going to be and who my mother was going to be and what I was going to do when I got here, and those they just seem real to me as far as making it something that other people have to live by, or a rule that I'm imposing on somebody else, or some absolute truth that I have privy to and no one else does. I don't see it that way at all. It's just my hunch about it, and I do believe that when as spiritual beings we do have a choice, and we can come into this world of form at will after we leave this body of ours. And that we've been doing this for an infinity, for that which never begins and never ends. I mean, it's one of the great lines out of the New Testament from Jesus: "Let me be with thee as I was with thee before the beginning." I mean, those three words, "before the beginning," are words that our brains and our bodies and this world of form that does have a beginning simply find it very difficult to comprehend and scientifically validate.
Okay. So I want to go back to you talking about picking your parents. What's your hunch on what your criteria was for picking your parents?
I think I had a real mission to come in this life. I write about an imaginary conversation that I had with God, and in this imaginary conversation, God asks me, "What is it that you would like to do here on this time around? When you're coming into this world of form?" And I said, "I'd like to teach self-reliance," because from the time that I was a little boy living in an orphanage until now at the age of 66, that's all I've ever done, ever wanted to do. It's an inner kind of music that I came here to play, that I've always felt. I've always had an internal kind of sense about my own capacity to be able to attract abundance into my life, to heal, to perform miracles, to create things that other people around me couldn't create. I've always had this kind of inner knowing about that, and there was I had a sense that this man that I chose to be my father was someone that was going to bring me into this world, was going to abandon me, was going to walk out, was going to have nothing to do with me, was going to pay no attention, was not going to pay any child support, was just going to walk out of my life. And it wasn't until I was able to get to a place in my life where I was able to go back to his grave, when I found out where he was buried, and forgive him, that my life really got on purpose. And it was almost as if God said to me, so if you really want this man, this Melvin Lyle Dyer person, to be your father, then that's the perfect choice, because then we'll get your little rear end into an orphanage, and you'll spend 10 years there learning how to rely upon yourself. And when you learn how to rely upon yourself, you'll be able to teach it, and no one will ever be able to question you. You'll never be able to be dissuaded about it because you will have a